What is grace? It's important to answer this question before we explore the graciousness of God as an attribute. You see, grace refers to goodwill, apart from any conditions. Another way to describe it is unmerited favor. To receive grace is to receive unmerited favor, or the goodwill of another that we don't deserve. You see, every believer is a recipient of grace. Do you remember what Paul told the Ephesians? Speaking of their former life, he said in Ephesians 2, verses 1 through 3, "And you were dead in your trespasses and sins, in which you formerly walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, of the spirit that is now working in the sons of disobedience. Among them we too all formerly lived in the lust of our flesh, indulging the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, even as the rest." Now that's some bad news. But Paul utters two of the most beautiful words that one could hear after such a statement. He says, "But God." He continues in verse 4. He says, "But God, being rich in mercy, because of the great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our transgressions, made us alive together with Christ. By grace you have been saved." You see, believers are the recipients of a gift that we do not deserve, and that is the favor of God. We don't earn God's goodwill by saying a magic prayer or walking an aisle. It doesn't come by learning big theological words or putting degrees on the wall. You see, believers are saved by grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone. Now, to understand grace as an attribute of God is simply to recognize that it is in God's character to show grace towards the undeserving, the unfaithful, the unworthy, sinners who ought to receive his unrestrained wrath, but instead receive his unmerited favor. You see, while never compromising his justice, God is also gracious toward those who are his own. That's why from beginning to end, salvation is all of grace. That's how Paul could tell the Romans, but if it, being salvation, is by grace, it is no longer on the basis of works. Otherwise, grace would no longer be grace. If this doesn't cause your heart to leap, look, you need to check your pulse. You see, truth like this does something to a person. It provides another reason to worship, because as we receive grace, God is to receive the glory. Friends, don't miss the opportunity before you today to rest, reflect, and rejoice in the grace of God.